Things could be just about to get seriously cold at Stamford Bridge. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. It's starting to feel like a good time to be a Chelsea fan again, right? We've made it to the Club World Cup final, where we will be facing PSG, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'll make a particularly anxiety-ridden video on that one very soon. What we're going to talk about today is transfers. As per Fabrizio Romano, the proposed Mohamed Kudus deal is off. Kudus only wants Tottenham, and supposedly there was never any thought from his side about coming to Chelsea in the first place. That is a bit of a blow. I've done a fair bit of research on Kudus recently, and although I wasn't sold at the beginning, I can easily see why he'd have been a valuable asset to our team. He's very, very versatile, super direct dribbler, and being able to play in so many positions is exactly the kind of player that Enzo Maresca favours at the moment. But he only wants Spurs, so let's move on. That begs the question, who do we go in for next? There have been rumours resurfacing about Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa, and that is an interesting one. If you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking or sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. I'm so close to 300 at the time of recording this video. Come on guys, help me out. Click that button. So as I said, Morgan Rogers is interesting, and let's talk about why. Aston Villa finished 6th in the Premier League last season, but that was literally only a goal or two away from being 4th. So you can't deny they had a really strong season, pretty much comparable to Chelsea's. They just missed out on Champions League football, and that has landed them in a little bit of hot water. Also, like Chelsea, Aston Villa have just been fined by UEFA for failing to comply with financial regulations pertaining to European competition. A little bit of that can probably be explained by the big splurge they went on in January to try and secure Champions League football. But with them just missing out, they're in a little bit of hot water and are under pressure to sell. They've already sold their women's team to their holding company just like we have, so are likely now being forced to look at some of their higher value assets that they can move on quickly for a lot of money, so they aren't penalised by UEFA with more fines and potentially squad restrictions in European competition. And in that respect, supposedly the number being quoted for Morgan Rogers is in and around £100 million. Oh man, that's so much money, isn't it? That's so much money. When I heard that Kudus' initial buyout clause was 80 million, I was also like, mate, 80 million for Kudus, that seems a bit nuts. And spending that much on a player just makes it a statement signing, doesn't it? But contextually, I probably need to rethink how it is, because obviously Moises Caicedo cost us plus 100 mil, Enzo Fernandez cost us plus 100 mil, and when I'm seeing these guys play well in our team and make things happen, I'm not sat there thinking, they're still not worth the money though. I'm just happy that they're part of our team and we're building something really strong. So yes, 100 million is a lot for Morgan Rogers, but if he comes in and plays an important role in the team, then the money's just an afterthought, isn't it? Morgan Rogers is yet another product of that famed Manchester City academy line, and we've already got the likes of Cole Palmer, Liam Delap, Romeo Lavia. So Joe Shields, one of our technical directors, obviously used to work for that academy and knows a lot of these players really well. And so far, you've got to say they're doing pretty good. But aside from all of that, let's start diving into the stats and see what they've got to say about Morgan Rogers. So, off the bat, a really good thing about Morgan Rogers is he is a very versatile player. I've whipped up a little graphic which I will put right here, and this tells us positionally where Morgan Rogers featured for Aston Villa last season. So he featured 18 times on the left wing with 4 goals and 6 assists. Great return. He featured 11 times as an attacking midfielder with 3 goals and 3 assists, 6 times on the right wing, 1 goal and 1 assist, and twice as a centre forward, but no goals and no assists in that position. So he doesn't instantly strike you as the archetypal left winger, right? But he mostly played in that position for Unai Emery last season. So that begs another question, doesn't it? If we bring Morgan Rogers into Chelsea, does that mean that he's going to be competing with the likes of Jamie Gittins, Pedro Neto, and maybe even Joao Pedro for that left wing spot? No, I don't think so. Enzo Maresca likes his wingers to hug the touchline and create width. Although featuring heavily out on the left wing for Villa last season, Morgan Rogers absolutely did not play that way. So let's have a little look at Morgan Rogers' heat map from last season to get an idea of positionally where he was featuring. So there it is, plain as day, lots of deep red spots in that right half pocket. And that means when he was playing on the left wing and centre attack, he was always looking to drift inwards and get into that space to support Villa's attack. What you can also see from that is, as I mentioned before, he's not scared of getting involved in the defensive work. There's a lot of red all over the pitch, and that's really good. Morgan Rogers is clearly an athletic player with a lot of stamina who doesn't mind making his way through the pitch, whether it be up or down, to start attacks or help with the defence. And there's some box presence there, which is obviously a good thing. Now, just to back up my earlier statement about why I don't think he's being brought to play on the wings, here is Jadon Sancho's heat map from last season, and that is a stark difference, isn't it? Look at that. That is almost 100% on the left side, running up and down, keeping width, cutting in occasionally to try and attack and to try and create and score goals, but the middle of the pitch there absolutely empty, and he featured almost exclusively on that left side. That is trademark Maresca in how he likes to play with his wingers. So unless purchasing someone like Morgan Rogers signifies a potentially massive upcoming tactical shift for Enzo Maresca, and chances are we're targeting him for his general versatility, but mostly to play in that midfield. Whether that be the Cole Palmer spot or the Enzo Fernandez spot, where even though it looks like he's starting deep, he generally finds himself in the right pocket of that number 10, and that seems to make more sense to me than Maresca all of a sudden changing his entire tactical structure just to accommodate Morgan Rogers on the wing. That's not to say he could never play there. He will never have been given the instruction from Unai Emery to hug the byline and stay wide. So it'd be interesting to see if he can actually do that role as well, but we'll have to see. Statistically, Morgan Rogers is actually a lot closer to Cole Palmer than he is to any of the wingers on our team. So despite most of his appearances featuring on the wings for Aston Villa last season, he was ostensibly played as an attacking midfielder. So what that says is you can't really compare Morgan Rogers to any of the wingers in our team, even though he featured mostly on the wings for Aston Villa last season. And who does that leave us to compare him to in our squad at the moment? Well, it's Cole Palmer, isn't it? I could have put Enzo Fernandez in this comparison, but Enzo Fernandez does often also play a deep role, and I don't expect Morgan Rogers to play that role. So as far as generally trying to compare him to someone who I think he'll be likely to emulate or feature in the same sort of spot as, Cole Palmer to me makes the most sense. So let's do it. This is a comparison of Morgan Rogers and Cole Palmer's 24-25 stats in the Premier League last season. So appearances, they both featured 37 times in the Premier League. And what that says to you instantly is that they are both obviously really trusted by their managers to play a massive part in their attack in the way that the team plays. And as for starts, Morgan Rogers actually started all of those 37 games as well. Palmer started 36, so that's kind of negligible really. It just reinforces they are both really trusted by their respective managers. So that brings us on to minutes played, and again it's kind of a negligible difference. Cole Palmer played in and around 70 minutes more football than Morgan Rogers did last season, and all that tells us is that Morgan Rogers was bought off more often than Cole Palmer was. So like I said, not a huge amount to go into there. And now we get to the juicy stuff, goals and assists. So I'm going to start with XG, and I know, not everyone is into XG, but as I've said before, there is enough information about XG to tell you that the top players regularly outperform their XG all of the time. That's not to say that if you're under your XG or your XA, that makes you a bad player, because at the end of the day, output is output. But it is a really good indicator of how successful a player is in their attacking stats. So Morgan Rogers had 6.58 expected goals last season, and he managed an output of 8 goals. So instantly, great, overperformed his XG. The other good thing about that is Morgan Rogers was not the designated penalty taker for Villa last season, so all of those 8 goals were from open play. Now, Cole Palmer scored 15 goals last season in the Prem, which is awesome. Still a bit short on what he managed the season before, but for any attacking midfielder in the Prem, that is literally up there with the best of them. Cole Palmer slightly underperformed his XG because his XG was in fact 17.27, so was expected to score 2 more goals than he did. And like I say, that doesn't mean Cole Palmer was terrible. Yes, we all know that he fell off a bit towards the end of the season from December, but those are still great numbers either way. And if Cole Palmer can get back to overperforming his XG, then we might see something like a 17-18 goal return from him next season. But this isn't a video about Cole Palmer, it's about Morgan Rogers, so let's get back to it. So for shot accuracy, Morgan Rogers managed 58.8%, which is really good, and Cole Palmer managed only just over 60%. So they're very, very, very close in that regard. But now we get on to assists. So Morgan Rogers smashed his expected assist last season with an XA of 5.24, but an output of 10 assists. That's nearly 100% extra than was expected of him, which means he was able to create something out of nothing. And we love that. 10 assists in the Premier League is elite numbers, and with new, young and hungry attacking players coming into our team, you know that it's going to be great to have someone other than Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez that can get involved in that metric. Cole Palmer again just underperformed his expected assists with 8 assists in the Premier League versus an XA of 9.14. Still really good though. But yeah, Morgan Rogers definitely stacks up in that stat. Okay, so let's talk about big chances made. Morgan Rogers made 16 big chances, which is really good. Cole Palmer made 24, and you just kind of expect that from Cole Palmer, right? But either way, although it's lower than Cole Palmer's, in isolation, 16 big chances created is really good. So that's kind of an overview of their attacking stats, but being that they're both midfielders, there's more to do than just get forward, create and score goals. So let's have a little bit of a look at their defensive stuff as well. Now, as we saw in his heat map, Morgan Rogers is not scared of tracking back and making tackles and getting involved in the dirty work, which is great. You can never have enough players who are good at attacking but are willing to get stuck into the difficult stuff as well. So it's actually really interesting between these two because their stats are the polar opposites of each other. And we'll start with tackles per 90. Morgan Rogers only managed 0.3 tackles per 90 over the whole season, whereas Cole Palmer managed 1 tackle per game in the season. Cole Palmer was more likely to get stuck into a tackle in that respect. But then we look at another really important defensive stat in interceptions per 90, and it's just completely reversed. They've just swapped over. Morgan Rogers manages 1 interception per game, and Cole Palmer manages 0.3. So what that tells you is you have them both on the pitch at the same time. That's good. One's going to tackle, one's going to intercept. Or if we're playing a certain type of game against a certain type of team where one of those defensive stats is prioritized over the other, then we'd have the 2 options. So pass completion position is one where, as a midfielder, I think Morgan Rogers could probably increase a little bit more, even though, as I said, he's obviously been playing a lot from the left wing, but he's mostly finding himself in those attacking midfield positions. Pass completion rate of 60% feels a little bit low and could definitely do with a bump, especially when you look at Cole Palmer in a season that he was considered to be off form with 74% pass completion. So another thing you got to love with a midfielder is someone that can make a nuisance of themselves, right? Someone that can take the ball to a defence and makes their defenders do something rash like go in for a last-ditch tackle or try and wrestle the ball off you. And both Cole Palmer and Morgan Rogers seem pretty good at this in that respect. Morgan Rogers won 51 fouls in the Premier League last season, which is great. That's 51 free kicks, penalties, whatever, anything that can get your team an opportunity to get the ball further up the pitch and create a chance. And Cole Palmer created 54, so they're both being targeted as that attacking player that the defenders are told, go and get that guy, don't let him have the ball for too long. He is a worry, and if he gets it past you, he might make something happen. I love an attacking midfielder who can cause some chaos and be a nuisance and just generally get in the way, right? So we'll finish up with the discipline stuff. And they seem to be polar opposites in this respect. So let's look at yellow cards first. Morgan Rogers got 10 yellow cards last season. 10 yellow cards means Morgan Rogers is a fiery player. And I didn't look into the stats to see how many of them were dissent, how many of them were rash challenges, but it shows you one way or the other, he is willing to take risks and get stuck in to make things happen. Hopefully it's not 10 just for dissent. Cole Palmer, on the other hand, only got 1 in the whole Prem. Apparently last season, I've double checked this because I could have sworn it was more, but supposedly per SofaScore, Cole Palmer only got 1 yellow card last season, which I guess just shows he's not making as much effort as Morgan Rogers is to get stuck in those defensive phases. Both of them are clean of red cards for the season, which is great. We don't need any more Nicholas Jacksons getting sent off in silly moments when we need you. So that's kind of it, right? That is a collection of statistics, both attacking and defensive, and some other ones to tell us a little story about how Morgan Rogers might compare to Cole Palmer if we bring him in next season. Now, what would be great would see them both play together at the same time, because although Palmer generally tends to edge out Morgan Rogers on the stats side, they are both actually pretty similar. I guess you would say Cole Palmer's a more forward-thinking guy, whereas Morgan Rogers is an attacking player who's willing to turn back and get stuck in, but you could argue that their stats nicely complement each other. And to see them both play as that dual number 10, you know, like how Enzo Fernandez does sometimes when he starts deep but ends up playing kind of in a dual number 10 role with Cole Palmer, I think we could see Morgan Rogers in that role as well. So yeah, man, that's it. Now, after looking at the stats, what do I think of Morgan Rogers? I think 100 mil is a lot of money. I thought the same about Mohamed Kudus, but it is inarguable that Morgan Rogers was a huge part of Aston Villa's Champions League push last season, and if they didn't miss out on it, I don't think they'd even consider selling him. So there's a couple of other things to mention about Morgan Rogers that aren't actually football related, but are just pure vibes. So the first one, obviously, is that being he's also from the Man City Academy, him and Cole Palmer are like best friends. Morgan Rogers is the originator of the cold celebration, and him and Cole Palmer supposedly FaceTime each other every day and are really, really good mates. Now, statistically, I don't think there's anything out there to say if your best mate gets on the team, does that make you play better? So I'm not insinuating that Cole Palmer would be better just because Morgan Rogers is his mate. But it's nice, right? It's nice. And you got to think it'd help him settle in the club a little bit more. And hopefully just that good feeling could lead to better performances, even if it isn't to do with how they actually play with each other on the pitch. And the other slightly funny thing is we've got Esteval Willian just about to come in, who has also started using the cold celebration. So we could find ourselves in a situation next season where we've got Esteval, Rogers and Cole Palmer all on the pitch at the same time. Maybe they all get involved in a goal, you know, key pass, assist, goal, and we could end up with a 3-way cold celebration, and that would be iconic. It is statistically very unlikely to happen, but man, that would just be a sick moment, wouldn't it? So, Morgan Rogers, how do I feel about him? Like I said, man, I think it's a lot of money, but as I also said, I don't look at Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo and rue the amount we spent on them. I just enjoy seeing them on the pitch when they're playing well. I reaffirm that positionally, I don't think if we go for someone like Morgan Rogers, he's necessarily being bought to play on the wing. I think it's possible he could feature there. He can be coached to try and hug the byline. He's quite a fast player, so he's got pace and he's got power, and maybe that's something else he could do as well, but the stats say that his best attributes seem to be used in the centre of the pitch. So I could imagine him either deputising for Cole Palmer in that centre attacking position, or starting off Enzo Fernandez style in that slightly deeper role, but ultimately finding yourself playing most of the game as a dual number 10. So yes, it's a lot of money, but he's had a really good season. His output's been really good, 18 goal involvements, and that's just in the Prem. That's not to mention the fact that he also got 4 goals and 6 assists in the Champions League. So he's got Champions League experience, he isn't scared of a big game, and there are lots of reasons to think he could be valuable in a Chelsea shirt for us next season. So yes, ultimately, I sign off on Morgan Rogers, even though I'm a bit about the money. It's so much money, but it's not my money, so I need to start forgetting about the money side of things and just focus on whether I like the player or not. Vis-a-vis Mohamed Kudus, if I forget about the money side of it, and if we'd have got Mohamed Kudus for 55 mil like Tottenham are looking like, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, that's actually pretty good. I just worry about the pressure that is put on players, but at the same time, it's just happening more and more often now, isn't it? Declan Rice was 100 mil, Jack Grealish Grealish was 100 mil. Antony was 90 mil. And obviously Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo were both 100 mil plus. So while we're not seeing crazy numbers like Neymar being bought for 220 mil, but these high numbers for these high value players do seem to be happening more and more. And Villa aren't going to sell him on the cheap because they need to raise funds, and Morgan Rogers is one of their prized assets. We actually have a reasonably good relationship with Villa. Obviously, we recently sold them Ian Maatsen, and we bought Omari Kellyman off them for 20 million, which was obviously just a I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of situation. We got the 35 mil off the books straight away for Ian Maatsen. They got a left back, and we gave them 20 mil, which went on their books for Omari Kellyman, who only cost us like 4 mil a season. So there's reason to think that the negotiations could go well, and we'll just have to see what happens. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. This topic was specifically requested by one of the commenters on my last YouTube video, but this one's been for you, mate. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're all having a wicked day. Next up is my match preview for the Club World Cup final against PSG, and in a few days I've got something a little bit special that I'm going to be a part of, but I'll say no more about that right now. Keep it locked because it's going to be interesting. Nice one, guys. I hope you had a wicked day, and I can't wait to catch up with you soon. Take it easy. Peace.